to Covering the Fields with your host, Joe Ellison.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to Covering the Field, the weekly program that analyzes all sports, handicaps them, and makes predictions. I'm your host, Joe Ellison, and today we're going to talk about pro football, college football, and basketball, hockey, the NBA, and our You Got Host segment. We'd like to remind you listeners to email us at coveringthefield@gmail.com. Please give us your feedback, tell us your You Got Host stories, and visit our coveringthefield.com website daily to check out our many articles and our picks of the day and week. Find us on Twitter at coveringfield. Now, kicking things off this week, I'd like to introduce our football expert, Big Richard Martin. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas there, Joe.
And same to you. So, Big Rich, what was the big news in the National Football League last week?
Well, the big news is always big news is going this week, last week, and the week before. It's the COVID is just corona's all over the place. It's affected all the teams. I mean, Joe, you had a stat on that, didn't you? Over 200 players have been affected by the COVID already.
I heard something like 234, like 10% of the entire league.
Right. So it's definitely hard to handicap. It's hard to play your fantasy football. It's affecting everybody, but it's minor in our world compared to the COVID crisis around the world. So we're just going to have to deal with it just like everybody else.
Yes, we dealt with it by having 3 games moved. 1 game moved from Saturday to Monday. 2 games moved from Sunday to Tuesday. But it was a nightmare at the sportsbook. All those games were taken off the cards. So people are trying to fill out parlay cards, and eventually the guys at the old Max Casino, they just took them out of the bin because it was a nightmare trying to cross off and get rid of all those picks.
Well, that definitely affects the sports world, and it's shutting down hockey. We'll talk about that later with Gator. It's affecting the NBA for sure. They're canceling games, and I'm sure Marc went over that.
Absolutely. So how about our buddy, or at least my buddy anyway, Urban Meyer? He was in the headlines last week.
Yeah, absolutely. We put that out there that he's having a hard time with his players, with his coaches, and Urban Meyer gets the boot, and Jaguars don't even plan on paying him his 4-year contract, and I don't think you should.
Yeah, he had certainly some interesting decisions. The strength and conditioning coach, he had to immediately fire, bringing in Tim Tebow. Of course, I guess if he'd have made the team, that would have been a great idea, but that was washed out pretty quickly.
Well, let's don't get crazy about talking about Tim Tebow this close to Christmas, Joe.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like, Tebow wins. He wins ugly, but he wins. And on Urban Meyer's defense, if he has a little bit of defenses, he wasn't able to put his coaching staff together. He was putting other people's coaches in there. There's a lot of backbiting, a lot of people talking into. That's how that stuff leaked out about calling them losers. If he had his own staff there, that never would have happened. And you don't get the continuity.
Well, I thought Tim Tebow was as close as we had to Jesus on earth, so I thought maybe it might be appropriate to talk about him.
Absolutely. I thought you were talking bad about him, Joe. We just don't talk bad about Tim Tebow during this time of season.
No. But anyway, he started 0-4 after that Thursday night game. He decided to take the rest of the weekend off. He ended up at that party. That certainly didn't look good. I guess he ended up kicking his kicker.
Well, actually, Joe, it looked good from his end, but from nobody else's end didn't look good.
Yeah. So. No, he was having a blast.
Literally.
Yes. Yes, he did bench James Robinson, his best player, and argued with Marvin Jones, But, hey, what can you say? He's a great coach. He won 3 national championships. I'm going to miss him in the NFL. He's always good for a story. Maybe you'll find him. Maybe you'll find him at a party near you. I wouldn't mind having a beer with him personally, but we'll find out.
You'll be on TikTok with him, that's for sure.
Okay. One more story, I guess not player related. The Super Bowl being awarded to Las Vegas. It was going to be 2024. It was going to be in New Orleans, but with the extra week added to the season, that's going to conflict with Mardi Gras now.
You can't mess with Mardi Gras. No. I mean, now in New Orleans, so they can't do that. Let's have it in Vegas. Mardi Gras every day in Vegas.
Have we seen our last Super Bowl in New Orleans now with the schedule such as it is? It's perhaps so.
Maybe so. A lot of good memories in that place.
So there was some good action too, right? The Chargers and in the Chiefs game.
Sure.
The Chargers.
Well, I went 3-2 last week, and I would have been 4-1 if this is a premature. I got hosed.
Right.
I had the Chargers plus 3.5, and they were up by 7 with under 2 minutes. How could you lose that game? I mean, not let's lose the game with 3.5 points. I'm up 10.5 points with under 2 minutes, and Travis Kelce just comes off and has an outstanding fourth quarter and overtime, and Herbert never saw the ball again, and I got hosed.
Yeah, well, the way the Chargers threw away points, choosing not to kick field goals, then that fumble on the goal line, I mean, that's a game they definitely should have won. Absolutely.
But it was good to see the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, getting back in gear, so I think that's good for football. As you know, that was my pick for the Super Bowl pick at the first when we were at the Blue Bowl. I picked Kansas City to win it all, and I stick to that.
You went out on a limb on that one. All right. But they have won 7 straight, so they are looking good. How about the way Tom Brady looked last week?
Oh, yeah, they throw a bagel up on Monday Night Football and just crushed a lot of fantasy football players' dreams. I mean, saw all their season go in the toilet. Tom Brady decides to, have a terrible game at the most crucial time of our playoffs, and, let's give it to the Saints defense. They shut them down, frustrated them. A lot of players got hurt for Tampa Bay, and so, that's what you throw a big 0 up on Monday night. It's not good for your fantasy team. It's definitely not good if you had Tampa Bay, like my cousin Pistol Pete was weeping in his tears.
Yes, and how about Arizona losing 30-12 to Detroit of all teams? That's going to be my you got host story.
Yeah, I think that they blow a lot of people's parlay cards for sure on that. You think that was a lock, and just they never got it going. It seems like they're just not even – they didn't even look like a playoff team last week. So let's see, maybe they'll bounce back this week.
Baltimore, that 2-point conversion thing, they can't seem to get that down at the end of the game. That's twice in 3 weeks that they've gone for it and failed.
At the end, I mean, they don't believe in overtime, I guess, in Baltimore. Harbaugh doesn't believe in overtime in Baltimore. Every time he gets a chance to go to overtime, he says, I'm going for 2. And, he's a riverboat gambler, but seems to be proven the wrong direction now that Cincinnati's first in the AFC North because of those bad decisions.
Okay. Well, because of that, Green Bay clinched their division. They're the only team to clinch a playoff spot so far.
Right.
How about Tennessee not learning from the Raiders, stomping on the Pittsburgh logo before the game? It doesn't seem to work.
Yeah, I think they need a stomp on the opposing players, not their logos. I think it might have a better chance for a win if they do that instead of pissing the other team off.
Right. And we should credit Miami. There's never been a team 1-7 that's made the playoffs. They're now 7-7, and they have a shot. So
yeah, they won 6 in a row. They're going to have a tough time this week over there in Mardi Gras town in New Orleans. But, Joe, you want to go over some of the injuries? I mean, we have –
Well, what kind of injury, COVID, and quarterback news do we have this week?
Well, I'm going to go with the teams getting affected the most with most players out. Browns right now have 18 players out. Houston have 16 players out. Kansas City has 13. Jets have 14. Washington have 11. And Jared Goff showed up on the COVID list also for Detroit, so they will not have their starting quarterback this week.
Ouch. Okay. That was going to be one of my picks. I might have to take that off. But I'll
good thing you're tuning into the show, Joe.
Yeah, it's a good thing. I didn't catch the news yet today.
Okay.
Okay. So Teddy,
I want to go over some injuries too.
Yes.
We have Goodwin's out for the year for Tampa Bay ACL. Chris Godwin's out for the year. Teddy Bridgewater is not starting. He's actually was in the hospital overnight. He has concussion. Joey Bosa's out with COVID. Daniel Jones for the Giants is out for the year, so they get the backup quarterback for the rest of the year. Leonard Fournette has a hamstring injury, as we saw on Monday night, along with Mike Evans. They both have hamstring injuries, and they're questionable. Getting a hamstring injury, it's hard to come back within 1 week, so I don't see those guys playing this week. And Levante David, their linebacker for Tampa Bay, is also out. He's doubtful with a foot injury. J.D. McKissick for San Francisco is on IR with concussion. And just now, Devion Bush and Marcus Allen, linebackers for Pittsburgh, are out with COVID.
Yes. Do we have any story on Lamar Jackson? I mean, Tyler Huntley looks pretty good. Maybe he should just sit the bench for a little while, old Lamar.
Yeah, I mean, what a great story that is, and what an electric player he is. I mean, I never thought I'd say that. That he should be starting every week. And Lamar Jackson was looking like an MVP player. That no quarterback's better. And little did we know that he was going to play that well. And little did we know how great of a player out of Utah he is. And if nothing else, they could put him on the trade waiver next year if they could pick one of the quarterbacks, because they could probably get a lot for him because he looks electric.
Yeah, Tyler Huntley, I think he just got a job somewhere else for next year. Looks real impressive. So I'm not sure exactly how your picks went last week, but let's just see what you're going to bet on in week 16.
Well, I did go 3-2. I should have had 4-1. Thanks a lot there, San Diego, for not going for any field goals throughout the game. But I'm going to start with the Annapolis Colts. I still love those guys. I think they're doing great. I actually bet them to go to the AFC Championship. I got them at a 15-1 odds. I'm going to bet them the money line the rest of the year out. I want to see if that pays off more if they go to the AFC Championship. So I love the Colts. I think there's nobody playing better. They're playing great defense. They're getting turnovers. Dave's just killing the ball on the, Jonathan Taylor's just killing it, running the football. And I think they're playing good. I love their coach. And I think that they're going to even pick them to win against Arizona. If they can't handle Detroit, they're definitely not going to be able to hold that running game for the Colts. So I'm going to start off with the Colts. I'm going to take Cleveland +7 at Green Bay, taking an upset here. Baker Mayfield should be playing. Green Bay is a game up, actually 2 games up right now to have home field advantage. I see it may be a letdown. They should have lost last week. I think Cleveland comes in there, would take that 7 points. They'll make it a close game, if not win. I like Atlanta, -5.5. Get that before it moves up with Jared Goff being out. So Atlanta at home. And I'm going to have to take New England. I can't believe I have to say this, but I'm taking New England, dropping the 2.5 to beat the Bills this week. They had a tough week coming off. I think Matt Jones played good enough to win, and I think that they turned it around. They right the ship. They get themselves in a good spot for the playoffs. And on Monday night, Miami's won 6 in a row. I say it's not going to be 7. I'm going to take the Saints at home. They're both 7-7. Saints needed to get into the playoffs. Saints at home with that great defense. They get Tua. If they can't, Miami can't get it done against the spread against the Jets. They barely got it done last week. I say this: they see a real defense this week, and Tua gets flustered. And those are my picks.
All right. So you said Detroit moved to 5.5, and I think you said Green Bay moved to 7. Is that
No. Green Bay. Green Bay's -7 at home against Cleveland.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm going to go against you on both my picks. That never happens. All right. I like Green Bay at home. They're, let's see, they won and covered all 6 of their home games. That's basically what I do. I kind of like handicap them. Cleveland could have some COVID issues. Since October, assuming that spread last week for Cleveland, I mean, they went from 6.5-point favorite to a 4-point dog. I just call that like a push. Since October 3rd, they're 1-6-3 against the spread. So they don't really cover a whole lot.
No, and they've been dealing with COVID injuries too, so it's hard to even get some practice. Baker Mayfield's not practicing with the team. He's still out on COVID, but he will be playing on Sunday.
Well, I didn't know Goff was going to be out, but crazy as this might sound, I was going to take Detroit plus the 5.5 at Atlanta. Atlanta has lost all 5 of their home games and obviously not covered any of them. Detroit, throw out that Denver game, and they've been playing pretty well. They've covered 5 out of 6. So
their running back Reynolds has definitely taken over the running back job there, with Swift being out. So he looks good at running back. And they ran the ball well last week against Arizona. But I think Atlanta gets it done this week. They're ready. Matt Ryan at home.
Well, they're due for a good home game, I guess. But that's, yes. Moving on now to college football, there are a record 42 bowl games for the 84 bowl-eligible teams. One game was put together at the last minute to ensure all 84 teams would participate. So what's happened during bowl season so far?
Well, last week I was 4-4. Tough luck, couple tough losses there. But San Antonio team finally let us down. They had a great season, but they didn't get it done. The Mountain West won 2 bowl games last week, so they're looking good for a Mountain West out here. But I think the game of the week was Western Kentucky quarterback Bailey Zappi was just amazing. He had 442 yards with 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and they just rolled over Appalachian State. So I hit that on the over. I hit that with, and I took them just the money line. So that was a good parlay pick there. And you know who actually leads the college in receiving there, Joe?
One of the Western Kentucky guys?
Absolutely. If you got a guy throwing 5,967 yards and 62 touchdowns for the season, Seth Stearns has 1,902 yards. Yards receiving with 17 touchdowns. He is a junior. He's kind of a small guy. He's 5'9", but we'll see if he comes out for the pros next year with that amazing season. Bailey Zappi will definitely be playing in the Senior Bowls. Let's watch him in those Senior Bowls and see how he does, like with Carson Strong.
Yeah. Well, the underdogs covered the first 6 bowl games and won 4 of them outright. So hopefully you're on the dogs early. But then the favorites covered 4 of the next 5. So now we're sitting where the dogs are 8-4 against the spread with 6 upsets. As far as totals are concerned, 9 of the 12 bowl games have gone over on that original bowl sheet that came out on December 6th, assuming that those lines didn't move too much. That's pretty strong for underdogs and over so far, I would say.
Yeah, there's not a lot of defense playing week 1 of the bowl games, but these are kind of the underdog. These are the teams that are the better teams are starting to play now, so the better defenses will start to play also.
So what games should we be looking forward to in the action until like next Wednesday?
Okay, so we'll start with the 2 SEC teams. I like Missouri. They had the 125th rated defense on 132 teams. The rush defense, they're going against Army, and Missouri's star running back, he's sitting the game out, the bowl game out. He had 1,600 yards. Tyler Batty had 1,600 yards. He's not going to play, but you know what? Missouri's still going to be electric. They're going to throw a bunch of points up. Army's going to run the ball. They're going to be a little wanting to get a little bit of revenge after the Navy loss, but I'm still going to stay with the SEC teams over the less big teams in the college football rankings. I'm also going to take Florida -7 at UCF. That game's in Tampa. That's the Gasparilla Bowl. That game is already sold out. So, I mean, there's a lot of teams, a lot of people from UCF and also from Florida Gainesville will be going to that game. Florida's going to have waiting for their new coach, Billy Napier, from the Raging Cajuns, and we'll see what they do. But I think the SEC teams will be able to run the ball over these other teams, and I think they'll be able to control it. Also, Hawaii's at home. They're getting 8.5 against Memphis. I mean, how could you not like Hawaii at home with 8.5 points? I know Memphis had a decent year, but maybe they'll eat too much of that Lua food and have too many kamikazes out there. And I think I'm going to take Hawaii as the home dogs. I'm taking Western Virginia -6.5. Your Nevada team's just decimated without their coach and their star quarterback. I think Western Michigan's Broncos go in there and cover that 6.5. I'm sticking with Auburn -2.5. So that's another SEC team over Houston and the Birmingham Bowl. Mississippi State, another SEC team over Texas Tech with no defense. I think Mississippi State has no trouble covering that 9.5. I'll take UCLA +1 and the Holiday Bowl, and I'm going to end it with Minnesota -4.5 against West Virginia in the Guaranteed Rate Bowl.
Yeah, you touched on a couple games I want to talk about. Obviously, Nevada, no Carson Strong, no Jay Norvell coach, among others. That's Monday, 8 in the morning. You'll have to get up early to catch that one. It's a shame we can't see our best team on the field there up here in northern Nevada. Mississippi State coach Mike Leach gets to face the school that fired him, Texas Tech. So I definitely agree with Mississippi State. If Leach has a chance to pour it on, he certainly will.
Oregon got Bo Nix as a quarterback transferred over to Oregon next year. So Auburn will not have their star quarterback, Bo Nix, but they will have the backup quarterback who played excellent with one wheel against Alabama in the Iron Bowl. He's not 100%, but he's been practicing. He's going to play. So I like Auburn in that.
So Bob Stoops, interim coach for one game at Oklahoma, should be inspirational. Won a national championship there. I'm going to try them. And we should mention Texas A&M apparently is pulling out of the Gator Bowl because of COVID. So maybe
That's
we're down.
true. And who are they supposed to be playing there, Joe?
It was Wake Forest, I believe.
Right, 17 ranked at Wake Forest. Texas A&M only has 38 active players because of the COVID, so it's not healthy for them to play. They're trying to get another team to step in. If they do get another team to play in the Tax Slayer Bowl, they're going to have to pull out of their bowl, obviously, to come to play in this bowl, so they don't want to do that. They'd have to get another team that maybe, if COVID comes in and cancels another game, they'll go ahead and play Wake Forest in the Tax Slayer Bowl.
Wow, at the last minute. That's going to be tough. Well, great job, Big Richard.
Well, thank you there, Joe. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to everybody out there. Let's make some money so we can have a lot of nice Christmas presents this week.
Next, we have our college basketball handicapper, Ronnie McKinnon. How's it going today, Ronnie?
Joe, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
What important happened in college hoops last week?
Well, we had a couple of UCLA, actually, a couple of games canceled because of COVID since we were on last Wednesday. Then we had number 9 Villanova lost to Creighton, so they dropped out of the top 10. Duke and Loyola, Maryland were also canceled on Saturday due to COVID. Then we had the one pick that I made with Baylor and Oregon. I knew Oregon was going to be tough. It was at Oregon. I did -7.5 Baylor. They did win by 8, so I got that part right. But the total was 148, and I had under 137.5, so I lost that part of it. So lost that bet. And then Sunday and Tuesday, both Iowa State won both their games. They have now moved into the top 10 and at number 9. And then we had Alabama, number 10, who's still at number 10. They actually lost to Davidson, the Davidson Wildcats. They're actually out of North Carolina. They lost that game by a point. So,
yep, that's Steph Curry's old school.
Right. So that was kind of interesting. How many people have heard of, well, obviously you did, Davidson, the Davidson Wildcats in North Carolina. So interesting. Anyway, so the top 10, actually the top 3 teams are still the same: Baylor, Duke, and Purdue. UCLA dropped to number 5, even though their last 2 games were canceled. They're still 8-1. Gonzaga moved up to number 4, and then again UCLA is at number 5. USC actually moved into number 8, and so that's pretty much the what's going on there with the top 10 in men's basketball and the games that have been played since last week.
Well, what predictions might you have over the next 7 days? I know it's tough with COVID and actually having the spreads, but
yeah, who knows what's gonna get canceled? I will have some picks. I will put them on the site by Friday, and they will be for Saturday's games. So again, like last week, I was actually going to do a couple other picks that got canceled because of COVID. So, but I will put some picks on there on Friday, 2 or maybe 3 picks.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to that. In the women's college game, how are the top teams shaking out? The women deserve a little time on our show once in a while.
That's right. That's right. Well, there was a big game yesterday, actually, number 1 South Carolina at home against number 2 Stanford. Good game. South Carolina did win by 4, 65-61. So they're still number 1. Stanford's still number 2. We actually have Louisville moving into number 3. Arizona's at number 4, and North Carolina State's at number 5. Actually, last week, Baylor was number 5, but they lost to number 13, Michigan, who has actually taken over the 9th spot in the top 10 from Connecticut.
Okay. Ronnie, you are a diehard baseball fan. What news has there been since the Major League Baseball lockout started?
Well, there's not much going with the collective bargaining agreement, Joe, but there was a couple new manager announcements. The New York Mets have finally chosen somebody, and it's Buck Showalter, who's 65 years old. He's been around for 20 years in managing with the Yankees, the Arizona Diamondbacks, Texas. He was with the Baltimore Orioles for 9 years. He's managed over 3,000 games. So I think he's going to be is going to help the Mets a lot. He's a veteran, and he's been in baseball for a long time, and I think they've had some inexperienced first-year managers the last 4 years. So I think Buck's going to do a great job there.
Well, I've seen him on television quite a bit lately too.
Correct. Yeah. Well, they just announced it a couple days ago, and now they're.
But he was like commenting. He was working for ESPN, I believe, and he's doing
right. Yeah. He's been around a while. He's well respected and liked, and I think he's going to be he's good with the players, and which is a big part of it, obviously.
How about my Oakland A's?
Right, your Oakland A's. They picked a new manager, and it's Marc. He's 46 years old. He played like 17 seasons. He's actually been under Bob Melvin, who was the manager there since 2016. Coatsay's been there since 2016. And he's been a special assistant. He's been a hitting coach, a bench coach, a quality control coach, a third base coach. And he was Melvin's right-hand man the last year. So I think that's a good choice. He gets with the players, and he's been with the organization, and he's played a long time. I think that was a good choice for the A's.
Oh, and Kotsay has a connection to Carson City. I didn't know if you're familiar with that.
I was not familiar with that, Joe.
Well, he married a Carson High School graduate. And,
wow.
Yes, and they have 3 kids. So.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right
so
on. Yeah,
go Marc Kotsay.
Yeah, right.
Go A's.
I think it was a good choice. I know you're an A's fan, and I think Melvin did a good job. Now he moved on, and I think Kotsay was a good choice for them.
That's some great information, Ronnie.
Well, Joe, thanks for having me, and I wish everybody a Merry Christmas.
How goes it today, Gator?
Oh, I'm doing great, Joe. Just enjoying the season. Thank you.
What's happening currently in the NHL?
Well, Joe, the NHL shut down last night and went to break after Tampa Bay beat Vegas 4-3. Now, they have postponed 50 games, including 32 this week. Now, on Sunday, the NHL announced cross-border games would be postponed through the break, and that decision was made due to the fluid nature of federal restrictions. Now, on Monday, there were 9 teams shut down. That would have been Columbus, Montreal, Detroit, Toronto, Boston, Nashville, Calgary, Colorado, and Florida. Now, players will report back to their team Sunday, but they're not allowed into the facility other than testing purposes. And that will be enforced until the player proves a negative test result. Now, any practice scheduled for Sunday must begin after 2 o'clock local time, and the NHL had 55 games postponed last season, and they were all made up within a 56-game schedule. Now, Joe, they will go back on Monday. There's 14 games that are supposed to be on Monday.
So, action back on for the NHL on Monday.
Correct, supposedly. We'll see if that stays true, yeah.
We'll see how it goes. How about the Olympics that begin in early February in China? What's the story there?
Yeah,
the deadline is January 10th, last I checked.
Right, for them to pull out. But they did, concerns over the COVID-19 pandemic has shut down the NHL players from going to the 2022 Winter Olympics. According to the Daily Face-Off, the Players Association and the league are in agreement not to send the players. Yeah, so that's terrible in my eyes, Joe.
That's very disappointing. I'm sorry to hear that. But they had it set up where if you did have a positive test, there would be 3 to 5 weeks of quarantine I couldn't imagine being stuck in China for 5 weeks, trying to come back and play for my NHL team. And then
Yeah,
you
that
need,
would be terrible. Yeah,
then you
that'd
need
be hard.
you need your 2 negative results 24 hours apart. Oh, it's a nightmare.
Right, Joe. I mean, just I don't know. I'm the one that's kind of for the Olympics happening all the time, but I'm not sure this time I'm all for it, especially being in China. Not sure what's going to happen if anybody gets not just COVID, but anything else goes out when they're not supposed to, or anything for that matter.
Now, we didn't go, the NHL players didn't go in 2018 either, but had nothing to do with any kind of disease. Why didn't we go 4 years ago?
Well, the NHL is pretty much against sending the players to those Olympic Games anyway. It's a lot of scheduling problems. And of course, that's how the players are getting paid, is from their clubs. But the players do want to play for their countries, of course. And as a fan, I love watching that too, especially in soccer. I see it, a lot in soccer where the players play for their clubs and then get to go to the international games, but you don't get to see it too much in hockey. So it's really disappointing. You got to wait like you said, we didn't even have it the last Olympics, so this is 8 years now. Now we got to wait another 4 years.
At least.
Yeah.
So who's actually going to go represent the United States?
Well, they will be filling those roster spots with college kids and junior college players, probably mostly college kids, though, so they'll be going.
Like junior hockey also?
Yeah, correct, Joe, correct. Which is kind of like minor leagues, I guess, if you want to say
Right.
Kind of like minor leagues. It's just juniors, sure.
So we probably want to have a terribly strong team, I'm going to assume.
I would think that if the NHL players aren't going, I would have to go with Canada.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
So, yes, hockey resumes Monday. Which teams went into the break hot?
Oh, well, Joe, I have 5 teams that were in there. 2 of them went 7-0. It's Pittsburgh and Nashville. And Vancouver is 6-0 as well. But Tampa Bay and Carolina, the top 2 dogs in my eyes. Tampa Bay's 8-1, and Carolina's 6-1.
So, which teams were happy for the break? They were playing so badly. The supposed cold teams, we like to call them.
Sure. The winless teams would be New Jersey. They're 0-6, and Minnesota, surprisingly, is 0-4. Now, the other 2 teams I have is Florida. They're 1-4, which is kind of surprising, and Montreal. They're 1-6.
Well, Gator, your picks went 5-2 last week. Excellent. What do you predict for Monday and Tuesday's games?
Okay. Well, all these games are all home teams, and I just figure having the break of it, it's going to favor these home teams, so that's how I went. But Monday, I got the Rangers over Detroit, Winnipeg to beat Minnesota, especially Minnesota being on my cold list, Vancouver over Seattle, Anaheim over San Jose. On Tuesday, I got 2 games. I got Tampa Bay over Montreal and San Jose over the Arizona Coyotes.
Yes, the Coyotes.
Yes.
Okay. Gator, do we have a follow-up to our coverage of the exciting Formula One championship race last week?
Oh, yeah. Nicholas Latifi, who drives for Williams, said that in the wake of Formula One's controversial race at Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, the 26-year-old received death threats. Now, he did crash into a wall with 5 laps remaining in that race, but to receive death threats seems pretty extreme. Now, Latifi wrote on Tuesday, and I quote, "We've seen time and time again across all different sports, it only takes one incident at the wrong time to have things completely blown out of proportion and bring out the worst in people who are so-called fans of the sport." So, Joe, I'm not really sure what to say about that too much, but there's sure a lot of hate and abuse in this world.
Well, there's, some serious Formula One fans in this world, too. They're not so much here in the United States. There's some crazy people out there.
You're correct, Joe, very.
So Gator, there was a disturbing story last week in the world of professional tennis. Could you share that with us, please?
Yeah, this is a crazy story. 6 Moroccan tennis players were banned from match fixing They were found to have carried out a number of offensive, including fixing elements of matches and receiving money for fixing and failing to report corrupt approaches. Now, one guy who in September 2016 was ranked 1,098th, he was banned for life and fined $10,000. 2 others were banned for 11 years and fined $5,000, and the remaining 3 were suspended for 9 years and also fined $5,000. Now, Joe, last year, an Egyptian was banned for life for corruption offenses between 2015 and 2019. Seems like there's a lot going on over there.
Well, when you're ranked 1,098, you're probably not going to make a great career out of your tennis. You might as well take some money any way you can do it.
I guess so, Joe. Sure costing him, though.
Yeah, I'm not condoning it. And those other guys that are out for 10, 11 years, their careers are pretty much over. They're
Yeah,
not
especially tennis.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And one final subject, Gator, was that a tiger I saw on the golf course last weekend?
Yeah, Joe, it sure was. The Pcn Championship is a 2-person scramble format consisting of PGA Tour and Champion Tour golfers and their sons. Now, this year, John Daly and his son John Daly II held off a challenge from Tiger and Charlie Woods. Charlie and Tiger had 11 consecutive birdies, which is amazing. Now, this is the first time Tiger has competed on a golf course since his car crash that crushed his leg in February. The Dailies finished 27 under par, and the Woods finished 25 under par. But what a pretty awesome tournament, Joe. I think it's great.
It's a great tournament, and Tiger's son looks like he's going to be a great player.
I think so too, Joe. No doubt about that.
See you next time, Gator.
Sounds good, Joe. Thank you so much. You have a great Christmas.
Next up, we're going to talk some pro hoops with our NBA analyst, Marc the Shark Sabella. How are you feeling today, Marc?
I'm doing great, Joe. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Let's get right to the picks, Marc. You went an excellent 7-3 last week. Which games look like winners next week?
Well, what I wanted to do today, Joe, was concentrate on the 5 Christmas Day games that are coming up. So Saturday is Christmas Day, and ESPN is still advertising 5 straight televised games that they're going to be showing. We're going to discuss in a little while why that may or may not happen with the outbreak of Omicron that's ravaging all the sports world right now, as well as the regular world. But also the 5 games on Saturday, Christmas Day, are the 5 games that they actually have point spreads for right now. And so we'll get it started off with the Atlanta at Knicks game. The Knicks are -1 in that game. I would probably, the Knicks on Christmas Day, I think they'll win that at home. So I would definitely give the point on that one. The next game would be Boston at Milwaukee. And Milwaukee had just suffered a couple of losses, including my pick of the week last week when Cleveland went in there and throttled them. But of course, Milwaukee was losing half their team due to COVID at that point, COVID protocols. Assuming Milwaukee is at full strength, they are giving 7 on that day. That seems a bit much. But they're playing Boston. But I'm going to say take Milwaukee at home. Give the 7. The game of the week is going to be Golden State goes into Phoenix. Phoenix is really tough at home. They've only lost 2 games at home this year. They're on a 6-game winning streak at home. They're giving 3.5 to Golden State. Golden State lost earlier in Phoenix with an earlier game, but Phoenix or Golden State returned the favor to Phoenix in San Francisco. So I'm going to say take the home team. Phoenix is still my kind of number 1A hottest team right now. They just beat the Lakers last night. So I'm going to say give the 3.5 over Golden State. So far I'm taking all the home teams. This is where it changes. Brooklyn plays at the Lakers in the fourth game. Somehow, some way, Joe, the Lakers are favored by a point over Brooklyn, who is the beast in the East. They're the number 3 team. They're actually getting Kyrie Irving back, if you can believe that. And we'll talk more about that in just a second also. And this is where I'm sorry, the Lakers are just not a championship caliber team right now. They're missing Anthony Davis. I'm going to take Brooklyn and take the point on that one. And then finally, the last game is Dallas at Utah on Christmas Day, the 5th and final game. And Utah is favored by 5. Luka Doncic just went into COVID protocols today. Looks like he's going to be out the next week. And Utah is just tough at home. I would take them and give the 5 points. I have 4 other games, but I won't do them here. I'll put them on the website for all the listeners to see how what I'm picking for the rest of the week.
Yeah, I guess we have to do a little part of our segment about COVID. I mean, certainly it's a huge issue. How is it exactly affecting the league right now? Like, what teams have issues?
Yeah, Joe, great question. So the Omicron virus is really turned into a crisis, not only for the NBA, it's turned into a crisis for all of the sports world. They had 3 games last Sunday, a week ago Sunday, postponed due to this. And the Chicago Bulls were the first team to actually get their games postponed consecutively in the week. And you're starting to see that. Obviously, I believe hockey is on hiatus right now because of it. My surprise is, and I've heard a rumor that they were thinking of Commissioner Silver was thinking or kicking around the idea of canceling one or multiple games on Christmas Day. And I don't know which team it is, but one of the NBA teams has 60% of their team has it. And it's primarily this Omicron variation that's affecting the teams now. That's why you're seeing it spreading so quickly in the cities and everywhere. And it doesn't even really matter if a player has been vaccinated or not. They're finding that the Omicron virus actually is getting through vaccinations and boosters at this point in time. So it's not surprising that you're seeing the number of players that you are where they are starting to get this, even if they were vaccinated. So it's just surprising to me, Joe, that at this point in time, all 5 games are slated for Christmas Day. But one thing I wanted to point out to the listeners is last week, in the last few weeks, you and I have kind of predicted point spreads for the NBA teams that we're looking at and the NBA games we're looking at. One thing I noticed this last week was the wild swings in depending on who's playing for each team. So it's kind of surprising that these odds are out for the 5 games. The 5 games may not even be played, or they'll be postponed. And if you have a team where you can actually put together 5 guys on the floor, you may get it where the lines have swung dramatically from one side to the other. So it makes it a really impossible job for you and I to kind of predict what the lines are going to be and then who the winner is going to be. So I'm just looking at it straight from a point of view where it's, if you have full teams you got the odds and you got the matchup. That's how the end result will be for each of those games.
Right. So we'll have to look on the website to see your predictions on future games besides the ones on Christmas.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, you did mention Kyrie Irving. We'll make that our last subject. Unvaccinated Brooklyn Nets guard Kyrie Irving being allowed to play road games. What do you think of that situation?
Well, Joe, I was going to ask you the same thing. To me, it feels a little bit like, the Nets organization and the owners had said from the very beginning, if you do not get vaccinated, any player that does not get vaccinated, they will not only not be playing the home games, they're not really part of the team. I'm not sure where, or maybe my colleagues can cite where you can be a part-time player, and where you can play your away games and not play your home games. But it really feels like the ownership really conceded, gave in to the bully, gave in to the guy that was dictating terms to them. I think it's a really bad look for the Nets organization that they're actually allowing this to happen. I understand why they're doing it. It's because they're going through just like every other team. They're losing players to the COVID protocols. But that really strikes me, Joe, as feeling like they're just really giving in at this point in time. A lot of C-League players are getting signed. Joe Johnson just got signed today. Isaiah Thomas got signed by the Lakers. I mean, you got to kind of make do with just these tough times right now. To me, it just really feels like the Brooklyn management gave in to kind of the demands of somebody that is just very dramatic and is just going to point to see I was right all along. So I don't like it. And the irony of the whole situation, Joe, is Irving is ready to play. He was slated to play for Christmas Day against the Lakers. He actually has Omicron now. So he's actually in COVID protocols. So
how ironic. Well, thank you, Marc. And
thank
we'll
you, sir.
Again.
Have a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Sponsored by MXC Media. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time for the moments we've all been waiting for. The stories that make us furious about bets that appeared surely to be winners, but in the end, something went horribly wrong and they ended up being losers. It's a segment we affectionately call You Got Hosed.
You got hosed.
So, Gator, do you have a You Got Hosed story for this week?
Yeah, Joe, I actually have two really quick ones. We had a hard time finding stories this week, actually, but I have first, if you had the over in the Saints-Bucks game, you got hosed. With those two offenses and not getting one TD the whole game, you never had a chance. And the second one is the NHL players not going to the 2022 games. We watch these guys play for their clubs and follow them for years. And when they play for their country, it even makes it more special and better to watch for a fan. So as far as the NHL players going to the Winter Olympics and being a fan of that, I think we all got hosed.
Yes, that's super disappointing.
Yeah, but I guess I'll be watching other events, just not so much hockey.
Yes, we will be covering a lot of the Olympics for sure.
Joe, do you have a You Got Hosed story?
I guess you could say I got hosed in a way because I took Arizona money line with a bunch of other big favorites on a couple parlays. Going into their game at lowly Detroit, the Cardinals had won all 7 of their road games and by double digits, no less. You would think winning by 1 point as a 13-point favorite would be a sure thing. But no, Arizona loses outright by 18. That's the NFL for you. The team with the worst record in the entire league beats a team with the best record. Since it was my only loser on a couple parlays, I feel I got hosed.
You did, Joe. Not just you, though. A ton of them did. A ton of people did.
You got hosed.
So that's all for this week's show. I'd like to thank my guests, Big Richard Martin, Ronnie McKinnon, Marc the Shark Sabella, and Gator Gates, our producer, our engineer, our editor, our junior IT tech, Caden Martin, and everyone for listening. We'd like you to visit our Covering the Field website to check out our many articles and our picks of the day and week. We'd like to remind you listeners to email us at coveringthefield@gmail.com. Give us your feedback, your You Got Hosed moments, and any other comments you'd like to give us, and find us on Twitter at Covering Field. Hopefully you all enjoyed the show, and you'll hear us again next week on another episode of Covering the Field.
You've been listening to Covering the Field, a CM World Services and the Sage production.